Grant from DroneDeploy. He's kind of a big deal. Look him up on LinkedIn. And I'm not joking. And nice to see you're able to still walk after that 10K. I slipped 5 extra in on you there, but Grant from DroneDeploy, he's gonna, amazing that we can have a panel like this and have you as our moderator. It's really, truly amazing. So I'll pass it to you and we'll take it from there.
No pressure there.
Here you go.
Perfect. I did almost die this morning. I don't operate too much on a strike rule, but Javier's got 2 strikes. To be the last panel between a happy hour is probably strike 2 here. But it's great to meet all y'all. I'm Grant. I'm with the DroneDeploy team. I'm down in Texas, so that's what you're going to hear some alls and alls with. But there we go. Cool. So my background is in construction. I tell folks I have way more experience in construction than I do on the software team. I joined DroneDeploy a couple of years ago. It's a long-time customer that needed some help in construction, which I said, hey, sure, sounds great. Let's see what we can do. And I've really enjoyed getting to meet more folks, many of which will be up here at the panel today. But it's just been really cool to hear all these workflows, and I tell Javier all the time, my filter for tools is really, if I wish I would have had it back when I was still in the industry, and cmBuilder is a no-brainer in that front. So what I wanted to kind of do is bring up the panel here. These folks have way better backgrounds and are highly esteemed more than myself, but we're going to have a really cool discussion with these folks, and when we were thinking about how we kind of wanted to frame this like last part, and you've heard the term reality capture and just some other things kind of thrown around in this category that DroneDeploy is involved in. We wanted to kind of highlight a report that we do, which I'll kind of get to here in just 1 second. But really quick, if you haven't heard about us, what we do, reality capture is a super broad term. It means a lot of things to a lot of folks. But the idea around it is there's kind of different stacks within reality capture. We call it most accessible, the most accurate. And DroneDeploy has really started obviously in the drone space, which is kind of where our name comes from, but we have had some acquisitions and acquired some companies over the 10 years that they've been a company into the ground capture space with 360 cameras, and then we just announced a really cool integration on some fixed camera sides of it. So just in case you haven't heard and haven't seen some of the other things that we've come out with, it's just really exciting to kind of start to check off some more of these boxes, which we hear a lot from folks of, when are you going to bring in scan data? And that's a really challenging one on the most accurate side that we are hopefully going to be doing here soon. But just real quick too on this part of it is just like what our vision is when we think about reality capture. Again, very broad and big term, but we like to think about it in these kind of 3 pillars. And these were actually bred out of customer feedback. It's really hard to think like, hey, what's the core parts of reality capture as you try to tackle that as an industry? And the 3 things that came to mind were unified, automated, and intelligent. And these 3 things really play into where our tool is going kind of in the future in this space. In that there's a lot of data that you want to bring together. Obviously, that's where kind of the unified piece comes in. Automated came from the pain point is how do I scale this? How do I go from 1 job to 5 jobs to 10 to 15 to 20? We do that through some automation within our tool for capture and also through an acquisition that we had in the robotics space. And then lastly, in intelligent, the kind of pain point here is we don't just need more data, we need more insights. And that's really where we're starting to try to draw some insights from the data that we collected. So those are the 3 big things. If you think of DroneDeploy, hopefully those are the ones that come to mind. But what I want to do, and I'll have you guys come up here and have you guys give a little intro to yourself here. Come on up, yeah, you're great. Is we do this once a year. It's kind of called our State of Reality Capture Report, and that's going to kind of be the backbone to this panel. But before that, I'm going to have these guys introduce themselves, and then we'll get into kind of how this fits into the questions that we're going to ask, and a little bit of participation that we're going to have from you guys here too. So Adam, I'm going to give it to you first.
Hello everybody, thank you very much. Adam with Maple Reinders. I'm the lead drone pilot. I feel like I'm in the trenches of a modern reality program. And by trenches, I'm usually found standing off by myself in the corner of the project, watching at the sky, seeing the drone do its thing. But just excited to talk to you guys about sort of what we're rolling out, what the flow is. If you have any questions afterwards, I love talking about drones, so feel free to come and grab them.
Hello, Jonathan Wong, SBWs. I'm the Construction Services Manager. What that means is that I'm in charge of some technical people related to pre-construction planning, quality, EDC, and surveying or reality capturing. So I'm as a lead to integrate all those to support our project teams.
Hi everyone, Val from Skanska, coming from New York City, pretty far from here. How is the energy in the room? I'm really excited about this. Talk to you about reality capture.
And my name is Hammad. I'm with EllisDon. I'm looking after innovation construction technology efforts, so VDC, BIM, our accelerator program, similar to Suffolk, and then also some of the new ventures that we're doing, trying to integrate, the new tools that are coming up with traditional construction practices.
They really brought the big guns here, so that's why I'm standing and you guys are sitting. But a little bit about this report, and this is, I think, what's kind of exciting because we do these reports, and this one's pretty interesting. We have over almost 1,500 respondents. We pull a lot of different countries and industries and things like that, which we're going to hone in on just the construction side of it. But I think when you guys, I don't know how many of you guys enjoy these reports or they're going out and they see them and they share them with their teams and like, hey, how do we benchmark? Everyone loves a good benchmark of how are we doing against maybe our competitors or our industry or regions. And that's really what I kind of wanted to put a little bit of a truth to today. And some of these data that we saw in this report, but then also personalize it to hear from the experts and saying, is this true? What are you guys hearing? What are you guys doing at your company specifically? So we kind of broke it up into 4 different kind of categories here, but I have a link to this at the end, or if you're just super curious, you can Google DroneDeploy State of Reality Capture Report and go download it. It's really extensive and really big, but we decided to break it up into these kind of 4 different buckets of adoption, ROI, challenges, and kind of where the future is going. So how this is going to kind of work, I'm going to go through a couple different percentages, and then I'm going to toss the mic. We did very little prep for this in a good way, and that's by intention because I want to hear their kind of hot takes and raw feedback around some of these. So you guys ready?
Yes.
All right, awesome, let's do it. So the first one into adoption, and sorry Hammad, I kind of kept your little mic up in the top right for all of these slides, so you may get a lot more than you think. But the idea here is that you've heard it, I think probably in every presentation today, is that it's on the rise, obviously for, especially for enterprise businesses. And these stats are kind of interesting. There's like probably 4 or 5 of these percentages per category that we'll go through, but 60% of 100 plus employee sized businesses are already using it, which what I wanted to get some audience participation from is who is using some form of reality capture. I would say that's a probably accurate, if not maybe higher. So the other number is that if you are in a 10,000 or plus, which is kind of a big scale, that goes up to 80%. Which again, I find interesting as we go into the bigger size companies that are using it. And so before we move into the other categories, maybe Adam, I'll start with you. Do you agree with those numbers? What have you seen in kind of the adoption side of it? And did they surprise you? Did they not? What do you kind of think?
So the adoption part, for me, phase 1 is the collection in the field, getting the information, bringing it home like a dog with a bone to the project team. And the thing about DroneDeploy, what it allows you to do is track the usage of that data. You can see who's using it on the team, how much time they're spending, what data they're pulling from it. You can see the growth chart from the project down to each day who's using what. So with that knowledge, you can see the projects that are effectively using it and the projects that may need some more help with the adoption process. So that's my 2 cents on that. It is on the rise, and being able to see it on the rise is a good thing.
Val, I'm going to kick this one to you because Skanska clearly is in this 10,000 plus category here. Big size company, maybe not 10,000, but you've seen it obviously change and grow in the career that you've kind of had in this. But do these numbers surprise you? Were they higher than you think, lower than you think? Would you say that they're accurate from kind of the Skanska side across all the different kind of projects that you guys do?
Yeah, I think reality capture is like warm bread. You can't get enough of that. I think it
sounds like a t-shirt.
Yeah,
Warm bread.
For all my Eastern European friends here, you understand? So I think, depending on what you're talking about, like 360s unanimously, I don't think anyone disagrees. We're probably in the 90% percentile in New York. Just being able to capture it, I don't think anyone has any notion that it's not a great technology that's being very useful to the now scanning is probably like somewhere in the 70%, and that's the reason is we're still getting into kind of the what I call kind of ground up construction, right? So we're still proving some of those use cases. I think for renovations, I mean, I think there's no question how useful scanning is. I would add to your chart sensors as well. It's like, I think we're going to see a lot more sensors and a lot of the equipment having sensors, and that's a type of reality capture data that's going to be critical to some of the risk and quality we're trying to get in the future. But it's on the rise. We're only going to buy more drones. We're only going to have more data to store. So we have to plan for that.
Well then, Hammad, I'm going to ask you a question here of, sometimes when we look at these numbers, what's really interesting is, well, what about the 21% that aren't using it? So a question I have to you is, what would you say to the folks that are on the fence, that maybe haven't looked into one of those different kind of most accessible, the most accurate kind of categories? What would you say to the folks that are maybe not all in on it yet, I hate to say the 21%, because that's still a lot. That's 1 in 5, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go an angle that you guys probably aren't thinking I'm going to go, which is maybe they don't need to use it right now because the industry isn't there. So if you think about interior fit-out projects, smaller subcontractors that specialize on a lot of those low volume contracts that are really fast paced, how are you going to wait for a scan to get georeference, modeled, all that to the design drawings you have? You can't. You got to build that. So that 21%, there needs to be a market leveling kind of incentive that comes in to be able to take those folks that aren't there yet. Yeah, sorry.
No, it's true. Oh, yeah.
Is there a little bit of an echo?
Yeah.
Reverb. So think about it that way, is okay, you've got the folks that you're talking to on the stage, we get multi-million-dollar contracts, but you heard that statistic earlier today. If North America has 800,000 contractors, majority of which, I can't remember the percentage, have 10, maybe 20 or less employees. Those folks are out there renovating this restaurant we're in and stuff like that. They're not building these hospitals and mega jobs, right? So how do you actually incentivize those smaller contract types to stay competitive, use those technologies is probably what we've got to talk about, because in the last 10 years since we've been working on this stuff, before Maple maybe wouldn't be using some of this technology, but they are now. So I think it's already shifted down to, from the top tier contractors to mid tier and even some of the smallers. We've got folks here that provide these services to architectural firms, engineering firms, consultants that before wouldn't use this stuff. So I think the penetration is good, but if we want to get a higher number, we got to look at those incentives in the marketplace.
Yeah, I love it. Jonathan, you're in a little bit of a unique position of kind of being in the services side of it, right? Of like trying to get more people to be bought in on it. What are you feeling like, or what do you feel like is the kind of biggest barrier to adoption to some of these folks in that sense?
It's your return on investment. I think for the most part is when you have larger companies, they have more money for R&D. I'm not 100% sure of that, but that's my general assumption. I think back to the point where some of the companies that are doing improvements, the question is, when you do your go, no-go, is why? Does it add value? And if it does add value, how long will it take, and how much can we profit off of it? And if it doesn't make sense, then we're not going to use it. I think generally as technology gets more, gets better, gets cheaper, then more people will adapt to it. And I think that also goes with software as well, as how expensive is that software, and how much do we actually use that software to make it feasible for us to actually get this job. And if we don't consider those, then that's kind of where I guess people won't use it.
Yeah, well said. You teed up the ROI part really well. I think it's just good to start with the adoption side of it, because I think you can kind of sway it in the direction of like, well, everyone's doing this. Well, numbers are helpful and they can be skewed in ways that you can make the deductions from. But let's talk about the ROI side, because this is really interesting too. I think, again, 2 or 3 slides here to kind of talk about this investment, which is really interesting. 61% of businesses plan to spend more money this year than they did last year. which I found that kind of interesting as a part of the report. 96%, very high, I don't know who the 4% are, but very high, are seeing ROI in these individual categories, which you can see here that were a part of that. Very interesting that we're going to tie into here and get your guys' opinion on. And reality capture is a no-brainer for big industries, which we kind of hit on a little bit, but there's some number breakdowns here. How much did it save you? Where have you seen it in the last 12 months? Which, again, these numbers are pretty interesting, which I kind of want to hear some of your guys' thoughts too. And then lastly, hey, what are the top use cases that you're seeing from your job sites, which I think all of those were probably talked about and discussed at some point here in the presentations today. But Adam, again, I'm going to kick to you kind of here too. Which of these maybe stands out the most? Which kind of a stat here kind of, I guess, perks your ears when you think about, okay, we're doing this now, but we got to show the return on investment here.
Big point that I sort of always think about is I kind of want to start this little black book of wins, right? Little, we saved this much here. We did this, it saved X. It's something that we sort of need to get in our pocket to sort of prove slowly over time that this is working and it's adding that value. Whether it's saving an upper manager from travel time to the site. I picture operation managers sitting in their large leather chairs with a big cigar and multiple screens. That's the future I sort of want. But these little wins that we want to track and sort of use moving forward to prove its worth.
Yeah, the little black book. I feel like everyone needs to have a little black book of just the wins. Hammad, I'm curious, these are 4 obviously listed here, right? The list could go on in the little black book, but do you have like an ROI story that are just like, oh, that's my winner every time folks ask about reality capture, just the win that came from it? Is any whether it's one of these listed or one that kind of stands out for you?
I mean, there's a bunch. We could go on forever, but I'll keep it simple. So we're in Vancouver, Royal Columbian Hospital. Ashley's in the back there. She was running our VDC team at the time. We needed to do, after pouring the slabs, floor flatness report. I'm pretty sure every contractor in here has to do that. At the time, RTCs were kind of new, so we bought an RTC 360. We had that going. There's a lot of traditional folks that we talked about on that job, and there's some younger folks who were very hungry for technology. So we already have done this across our portfolio, laser scanning for floor flatness and reporting. I don't think it's a novel thing, but those folks had not done it before at that time. So for them, it's new. No matter which ROI story we brought in is out the window. They don't care. We could say I did it on this hospital, well, that's in Ontario, that's in Alberta, that's, wherever. It's not going to work here. So the team showed up, I think, at like 4 a.m. to go and scan. And there's water, they had to kind of brew the water off all this. After that, the scheduling team and the project team built that into their schedule that after every pour, we're going to be scanning this on our own. They trained their own people and took it all on themselves like that. So that's one aspect where you do have ROI, but they don't care. They need to feel it.
Yeah, I think what's even funny about ROI is there's like a numerical and then there's a narrative. And sometimes the narrative is way more impactful than the numerical amount of just the stories that you heard and the kind of pain points that come from it. Val, I'm going to ask you the 4%er question on this one. Is when have you seen or when have you kind of experienced or heard from teams when they don't get ROI from using reality capture? Like, it's a very small percentage, but there still is some to be there. Or I'll give you a kind of tee up, or you can talk about kind of the investment part of it, of seeing some of these other kind of ROIs part. Take it however you wish, but 4% is hard.
I think probably 4% is like one of the things you do is you capture the space, right? And that's great. But downstream uses and really kind of doing the analysis and really presenting it in a way that's understandable to the team. And sometimes it's the biggest and most important thing, because if you scan the space, but then you don't deliver a product that's understandable to the field and the people that are actually going to make the changes, then I guess that's when you have that 4%. And on projects, I'll flip on the other side. We've seen like scanning and slab conduits, for instance, on the project. It was 10-story tower that we're building, health lab in New York. We see 12% reduction in the amount of hits that we have. So like we scan them beforehand, we create a drawing. Now when they're kind of coring, they don't hit the conduits that are in the slab. So it's pretty simple, but we've calculated about 12% savings on that alone. So then there's a ton of stories like this, flatness for like MRI, Linux. Teams also understand when they don't use the best process. So we had a Linac that was built more traditional style, and then we ended up building a second one, and the team kind of learned from the first one, and we scanned it multiple times to be able to do flatness on walls and floors, to be able to kind of level the equipment and kind of beat the schedule as well. So which is super important to the super flat surfaces that you have in those hospital spaces.
Yeah, what I'm hearing you say too is just like, if you use it as the sword and not a part of the process, like you're probably not going to find the maximum amount of ROI. Like if you think it's going to solve everything and it's going to come in here and just swoop in immediate value, it's not going to.
I'll give Thomas Love some credit here. He said if technology is not a problem solver really, it's really the way to solve the problem. But you have to identify and know exactly what you're doing, because you could actually cause a bigger problem if you're just applying technology without sort of understanding how to do it.
Yeah, well said. And Jonathan, I kind of want to hear your talk, or just your thoughts around, this is the one that I kind of want, like these number breakdowns of like 5K, 50K, 100K, like, when you think of kind of ROI, do you think of it in the money sense, or do you think of it in the story narrative sense? Like, obviously these are just percentages tied to numbers in particular, but.
My personal opinion is that whenever we do KPIs, there's always that aspect where your metrics are incorrect. So in my point of view, servicing our superintendents and our project team, it's pretty much what value does it bring them. And I think to your point is that if we cannot provide a deliverable that they can understand and actually take to the field and communicate to the subtrade, it's no better than saying, oh, we saved like $12,000. You're like, yeah, but I still couldn't talk to that person or take that information. So the trouble that or let's say the return on investment and the hurdles is really trying to get that buy-in. But to get that buy-in, you need to have something that is analyzed, or to say, hey, here's the hotspot items of this deliverable from a reality capture. I think the easiest RI to get, the easiest reality capture to start on is a 360 camera. Because I have a PC out there taking photos every day at every point, in putting it into Revisto, or you could do it in Procore if you want. But essentially, you could just see a timeline of a 360 camera with context of each room, and you can see the progress. And there are times pre-board, just having that simple context of that room without LiDAR and without any quantification of measurements, they find more value in that because they can go back and say, oh yeah, you actually didn't install it in the wall. And that's like, then it helps with contracts, it helps with PMs, and it helps with PCs in defending the point of who missed what. So that's just like a simple added, like a great value for very little cost of like an $800 Insta360 camera.
Yeah, we hear it all the time, like start simply start. Like, don't overthink it. If ROI is your driver for using it, it may not be the best driver. As I think we often hear in some of these conversations, like, what's the ROI on using this tool? It's like, well, tell me the business processes that are having the most challenge, and start simply start. So I want to get to the next one here in challenges, which we've kind of touched on a little bit here as we round out the back too. But some interesting percentages here, just numbers kind of on this, and ironically we've talked about this with some folks at our little table over there, is challenges of reality capture. So fragmented tech, multiple point solutions, different tabs. I think I heard it earlier today, there's a tool for anything that you want to apply to. Obviously some percentages here that are very interesting to think of. Hey, 70% use maybe multiple tools that can do the same thing, which is a pain point and a challenge in the kind of field of reality capture. the hardware facts around kind of the challenges too is, well, what hardware is out there, which ones can you be using, or which ones should you be using, and the challenges of either getting certified if you're using a drone or another piece of equipment, or just a simple handheld camera. And I guess the challenge is really is kind of what stay on this slide, because there's a lot of numbers and percentages here, but I guess, Adam, I'm going to ask you first. Would you say the kind of point solution category is one of the most applicable challenges that you see in reality capture, or is there another one that kind of stands out of why reality capture can be challenging for folks?
The big one that comes to mind for me is building trust with the project team. You know, you could pour all your effort into the most accurate, the most comprehensive reality capture, but if you miss the moment where they go to look at it or use it, and it's incomplete or incorrect, then I feel like you've sort of set yourself back so much. So building trust, building the relationship with each individual person who's using it is the big challenge for me, and being ready when they want to bite and when they want to use it or show it off, that it's accurate and it's as complete as it can be for them. That's the big one for me.
It's hard when you've done all the work to get it there, and then when someone goes to see it, they're like, well, I don't, which tab was it? Which login was it? Yeah, that can be really tough. How about if I kick this one to you? What point solutions, like, is this a challenge that you see, or is this kind of just a facade on other challenges that are here in the space?
Just because Procore was here, let's pick on them for a bit. So Procore, everyone thinks, is a startup that came up overnight. Anybody that's been kind of focused on construction tech knows it's taken over 20 years. I think Tui said it took him over 12 years to come to, you know, at least making a profit, not living off of venture capital and investment. I think he put his house on the line a few times. So if something like Procore, which was a point solution at the time, looking at logs and submittals and stuff like that, and now you look at it as a unicorn in Contech, which is over $1 billion valuation on the public market, is an ecosystem. That's why I think that 70% of point solutions is very accurate. We have over 250 pieces of software that we use. It's not like every job's using all 250 pieces of the software, but that's a very real problem. So then earlier on, you heard Alexis talk about the data kind of thing being one of the competitive advantages. I think that remains true is for some of the companies now, you know, you've got all these point solutions, you got to pull that data out and do what you need to do with it. You heard the gentleman in the back earlier, I think Jason also gave his 2 cents on, you know, the closed systems and the 3D CAD files and all that proprietary stuff. So it's a really, really valid pain point. And so companies have to take a little bit ownership on their side, spend their resources to pull it out. But at the same time, now you're seeing the big folks doing integration. So DroneDeploy is a tool that we use, same with cmBuilder and Timescapes. Now they all have different integrations. So that's another solution you're seeing in the market from the providers working among themselves. So yeah, that's my thought, it's real.
Oh yeah, that's some thoughts.
Yeah, one of the things with the point solution is that you have to pay for each one. And so we're on a fixed income, and it's very difficult to get, and I have a conversation with founders all the time. It's like you're solving this little problem right here, but if you really want to get in, and the problem with us in the bigger GCs is that we have solutions that are already in place, whether they're the best solutions or not, they're sort of in place, and you sort of have to sunset them and kind of create another level of business value to be able to go to the next tool. So that's one of the issues is, you know, everybody kind of wants to charge construction cost volume, which is really difficult on like a $5 billion project to make the case. And I think having those integrations when you have small companies like cmBuilder talking to DroneDeploy, and I think that's a win for the industry to be able to move data from those different products that kind of cover certain aspect that is very helpful.
Yeah, well said.
Add in the market, like the percentage thing, we just gotta get that out there. Most of the people are construction architecture, so it's probably falling on deaf ears except for a couple of folks. What is the margin on average in the industry right now, outside of heavy civil? We've been trending down less than 5% on average across North America. Some highly competitive is at 3% right now. So if everybody wants to charge you 1% of your contract value, what's left for us, right? So I just want to get that out there because it is tough.
Yeah, well said. Jonathan, I want to hear your thoughts on this as we kind of wrap up the challenges part. The DroneDeploy team and something Javier and I have talked about is like, it's as much on our responsibility as software tools that we hear what's working well in other tools as much as it is for y'all to tell us, like, hey, why don't you talk to some of those other folks? Like, what are some of the kind of other antidotes that you see to this kind of point solution kind of challenge that's there? As much of us talking to each other is great. Like, is it our responsibility? Is it y'all? Like, there's a lot of different ways to overcome this, but any extra thoughts that you want to add to that?
I guess I could summarize it with time. So whenever we try new software, we just say, hey, this is great. Someone sold us something and we're like, great, we're only using 10% of it, and the right users are not using it. Specifically if we wanted superintendents to use it. And to get superintendents to use it on their job, and I think this was said multiple times during the day, is not everybody has that time. Because essentially we are businesses to make money, and our business is the execution on the site. I understand the planning and stuff. I heavily believe in planning, and I love the tools that are there. But if the people actually executing do not buy into that planning or understand that investment that we're telling them, it's like telling a child veggies are good for you, and he's like, no, I don't want a candy. And you're like, okay, well, how do you make that? Do you blend it? Do we put it in a shake and then serve it to them? And I think, generally speaking, it takes time. And I think when it comes to my decision on do we implement some software, the question is how? Like, is it an easy pill to swallow? Is the learning curve too high for it? And who's the right people to use it? So I think some solutions would be pairing a superintendent with a PC, or the young and the old, or the ones that want to use it and the ones that have the knowledge. Doing those things are probably the best bet, because when it comes to software subscription, you are on a timeline. It's like, when I look at some of the systems and the software, it's like $14,000 a year. I know that might not be much for some people, but for us to test it out and have one user use it, it's a lot to stomach. And I think that's kind of where my position is.
Yeah, well said. Let's wrap it up here to the end. There's some other notes on the hardware front that weren't really relevant to that section. So future, this is, I think, is a really exciting kind of topic to talk about. I think a couple of the slides and percentages that we have in here is a little bit specific to DroneDeploy, but I want to get your guys' perspective outside of even this. One thing that's really exciting about the future from the capture side in reality capture is there's never really been an automated way to do it. And a big thing that's come out here in the last 12 months is kind of a dock-to-drone solution that sits in a box on the job site. You go and say, hey, whenever you want to find this thing, go out and capture it. The bottleneck used to be having a pilot that was there, and you can still have a pilot if that's something that you want to pursue. But just a big future piece, which was interesting as we asked this question in the report, is like, hey, dock drones, that's something that's going to be coming around here in the next 12 months or so. Where does that kind of sit as something that, if you are already using drones, is that something that's interesting to you? And you can obviously see some of these percentages that are listed in here, which is a little bit lower. One, because the cost of these used to be so high. The newest ones are much more affordable, and it'll be exciting to see kind of the excitement around that. But that's the kind of drone future side of it. I want to hear your guys' kind of thoughts and open-ended question. And Adam, I'll start with you again. Just like, what excites you the most about kind of the future of this category, reality capture in particular, that stands out? There we go.
Sci-fi reality of drone docks is an amazing thing. What I see is a promising future for young, up-and-coming drone pilots, reality capture specialists. I teach at a drone program at a college back in Ontario, and sort of back in 2018 when this program started, you know, the opportunities for a position in construction, agriculture, inspection, whatever it is, sort of was not there. But the future I see now is a place for them in the work world, whatever their diverse sort of interest or experience is. It's a multi-tentacled beast, and the opportunities are growing for them, and that's a big thing for me.
I think it's exciting of like trying to think of how do we attract more people to this industry that is labeled very old and antiquated and just out of touch with kind of new trends. And yeah, I think about reality capture being a big part of that, but go, Val, you got a thought?
Yeah, I think reality capture is like the last mile, because right now we have like solutions like Procore where kind of they're automating the office side, and we have a lot of data that kind of supports what's happening in the office. But I feel like we don't have that much data when it comes to the field. And I think that's really the last mile, and probably the most important thing for us to really gain productivity is to be able to really understand what's happening on site and really kind of start acting on it. And I think automating some of that capture will create structured data, which is like a better pipeline of data that you can analyze using AI. So I think all of it kind of goes together, and we see a convergence. So that's exciting. I think we're in a golden age right now.
So, Jonathan?
I think in the near future, what I'd like to see is more quality control on the models and the field. So, like, let's be honest, we get some drawings, we can say it's inaccurate, but then we build it the way we want anyways. That can also go with the model. You have a model, if there's something that's some subtrade then suddenly did something else and have to do it, how do you verify that? So I think with reality capture, with LiDAR, 3D scanning, the faster we can process the data, and I think that's the biggest thing, is there's going to be a shift in skills from the field that used to take half a day to do a topo or a day to do a topo, now will take 15, 40 minutes just to get the whole entire 21 acre site. That's going to change because now we're shifting into data management and analysis. And I think that goes back to that insight is what can you do with that data, and then how do you feed it back to the field so they feel they have value. And I think by comparing those two, call it if it's floor flatness or if it's just clash detection or just quality control of the model, that's kind of where I'd like to see the future is really is just processing it faster and having that skill set.
Well, Hammad takes home.
Well, I mean, let's just repeat that kind of same theme. Convergence of reality capture, going back to point solutions and the ecosystem coming up. So if you look at 360 photo, terrestrial capture, drones, all the fixed cameras, they're all coming together, overlapping. Same things kind of happening within that ecosystem approach is, doesn't matter where I'm creating my data as long as I can pull it and combine it. So that's one side, but then the other side is, if you look at the kind of growth of the work on site, we've talked about the labor shortage, the complexity of project, schedules are shorter, supply chains are more messed up, if you want to call it that. So you need to be able to rethink the way that we engage these contracts to get people to build. I think that's going to be the future to unlock value, is flipping the paradigm of contracts and that whole relationship. When's the last time any of us have talked about the financiers when we're talking about construction technology? Never. Generally never, yet they're the ones that do all the construction loan payments and progress payments, all that kind of stuff, right? So if you look at that core root, the entire paradigm is not there for the tools that we have today, but I'd argue the tools are there, the robots are there, the AI is there.
Man, that's a lot. Almost on time, 1 minute over. If this was interesting, and really the reason we put out this report isn't one just to put together PowerPoints and slides like this, it's really to help be a resource for you all to go back and share with folks of, hey, like this is what's going on in the industry. So go check it out. Again, you can Google it, you can scan this QR code and it'll take you to that report with, this was just a high level summary of some of the things in there. It's very fascinating. And if it's really curious too, DroneDeploy serves a couple other different industries too, that's always interesting too, is what are other industries, specifically oil and gas, renewable stuff, doing in the space that is just very interesting. So go check it out if that is of interest to you. Let's give these guys a big round of applause for all the I'd love to answer or open up some questions if you guys have any. And you are now in between you and drinks, so what questions can you answer? Yeah, go for it here.
You shout it out.
Yeah, I'll just.
We're all friends.
Yeah, so I'm sure that CAD makers, cmBuilder, and DroneDeploy are already having this conversation about data quantity rather than data quality. As the cost per gigabyte of data storage starts to plateau, is that a conversation that you guys are already having within your organizations of how to maintain data in a healthy way, prevent things from ballooning out? You know, having someone create a copy of a point cloud, and then, you know, before you know it, it's terabytes in your system. Is that something that's already a conversation within your organizations?
Totally. So just to summarize what I'm hearing you say or ask is, hey, data storage is a huge component of reality capture just in general. And the storage and the cost of it and just how the scale of that kind of applies, how has that kind of affected some of these folks? Yeah, any thoughts to you guys?
I mean, Thomas Lamb, our CTO, could probably answer this better, but there's definitely that conversation going on. So when I started, we had on-prem servers, everything moved to the cloud, and now there's a little bit of conversation going on, potentially maybe getting your own servers with an Equinix or something like that as well, right? So that's one piece. The other piece is we're not going to produce less data. So it is definitely something, to your point, that's a big conversation, is now that we've got a lot more projects that are generating more data with all these different tools, IoT sensors, all of that, reality capture. What is that balance? So I don't think there's an answer for that, but it is something that's happening.
Luckily, you guys don't have storage limits, so we can continue making cmBuilder projects and DroneDeploy maps, you know. But it's definitely a consideration. I mean, same thing. We're shifting kind of online servers, and there's definitely a consideration on like how things are filed, and so it's really important to kind of the future of how things come together. So.
Yeah, well said. What else is there? Any thoughts? Any other? Yeah, go for it.
Is there like a future solution, like basically drone-based SLAM, that's going to make a lot of the other tools like irrelevant? Or even SLAM, is SLAM making the LiDAR rotating scanner? Are we going to stop using those?
Yeah. Just summarize the question, just about SLAM technology in general.
Well, or one of these solutions that's going to make it unnecessary to have all these different, the 360 cam, LiDAR.
Yeah, good question.
So we have different tools. Like if you go to the construction tools on Home Depot, there's like 10 different hammers, right? So I would say the same things with reality capture tools, right? You have the SLAM scanners, you have the terrestrial scanners, you have kind of in-between solutions. And I feel like you need to use the best tool for the job. So some scanners are more accurate, some scanners take better pictures. So by testing and understanding what those tools are and what their limitations are, it's really kind of applicable to a certain use case.
We don't see one getting so good that everything.
I would say I think maybe we'll see some convergence, but I think we'll have different tools.
Photos are getting better right now.
Yeah. I think it's a really good question to ask. It's just, and I think it brings up a good point in what you asked about the sensors, right? Like how you could even pull just what a sensor that I equate sensors to a toolbox, right? Like very rarely a toolbox has just one type of tool in it. But yeah, I very much agree. It's really the right tool for the right job, and there may be some convergence and efficiencies and costs and things like that. But I would say the key players is either like photogrammetry, being a processing capability of reality capture from photos. You have SLAM from LiDAR. That's a big processing engine too. Maybe I'm missing a couple other in there too. But yeah, I don't see them converging. I guess it's kind of, hey, they are equally good in their own respects. That are doing well at different price points and different kind of scales too. So great question. Yeah.
I'll yell. So to end up on a positive note, I saw a couple of slides questioning ROI, and I just want to put a bug in all of your ears, saying that if you execute reality capture in the right way, that can become the most profitable part of your departments, whether they're digital departments or not. You're all dealing with large institutional clients. You are all achieving great savings by looking at where to grind and where to fill. You guys all know the cost of leveling compound. They take you to the cleaners when they do that on the walls, on floors that didn't go right. So if you do this right, I think the future is super bright for all the reality capture. Just figure out how to make money. Okay?
He's going to be on Panelists here. Well said. One last question, maybe. All right, awesome. I'll kind of leave you guys with a quote. I read this article here a week or so ago. And it's kind of funny. We all talk about the oil boom, right? Like oil became the hottest commodity, and then everyone says like data. And now data is the biggest commodity for job sites. It was a quote from an article that says, "Success on the modern job site requires intelligence, which requires a constant data collection by workers at every phase of the project." And that's really true, and really reality capture is the way and the kind of the oil rig, I guess, of extracting and capturing that data on the job. So let's give it up again for our panel again. And